email that asked to be read during the first citizen comment.
All right.
And I'll be happy to read it. My name is Tim McCluskey, and I live on Watson Road. I would like to remark on the distribution of costs between the enterprise fund and general fund. As you know, these allocation of costs are essentially costs associated with the amount of time that our general fund employees spend on enterprise fund activities. Last week, the rate was 20%, but this week it is 14%. It is going in the wrong direction. According to the finance officer, it should be at 40 to 45%. Last year, it was set at 35%, which was the first time in many years that the council attempted to fairly distribute the actual cost. As a council, during these budget work sessions, you have been very diligent in stating that you want to do the right thing, to protect the future and correct issues like spending capital revenue on operations. I believe this is the very same thing. The enterprise fund should be able to stand on its own. Revenues and expenditures and investment in capital should be separate from the general fund. In my time on the council, the distribution of these funds was always a point of contention. Prior to the council having 5 members, most years, the majority of council voted arbitrarily to set this percentage at a rate that made the budget look nice because they didn't want to raise utility rates. The budget was presented to you. The budget as presented to you is doing the exact same thing. I'm not advocating for raising rates, but I'm advocating for accurately distributing the costs. Every dollar that the general fund is subsidizing to the general enterprise fund is one less dollar for another police officer or public works employee or another road repair project or another dollar to pay down the debt. This is real money.
Thank you. Any questions, comments about that?
I'd like to comment if I may. While I understand the need to distribute those funds in an equitable way to cover the cost of town staff exercising activities within the enterprise fund's auspices, I do also look at that if we were to move the 45% over, it would be somewhere in the area of $500,000. And quite frankly, unless we read into the funds balance, that money isn't there. The distribution is to, for this year, balance the budget and then give the council some room to approach the 2 long poles in the tent, the wastewater treatment plant and debt. The debt, the wastewater treatment plant, we know there's an activity going on there, and we're doing all we can to get the funding. The debt, as that comes down, allows us to do the proper distribution of funds. At this point in time, that debt is there's no way around it. Until we knock it down some, then we can do the proper equal moves across the thing and be able to get back into a positive approach to our capital needs. Outside of that, I think this year, as you will see, we have done 2 things with the final packets before you. One is with a single hire and one is with no hires. Chief Sabori and I have talked, and I'll allow him to address if he decides to, that we feel from the staff perspective we are united in asking the council to revisit the hiring needs at the mid-year mark, as has been broached by council a number of times in discussion. And outside of that, we think the budget put forward puts us on the right trajectory.
Yeah, I would say about the comment from Tim, Mr. McCluskey, is we're fixing some systems here. I think are going to take some time to play out.
Yes.
We are down to 14%, as he states.
Yeah, and I just put the budget out today. Chip and I had talked, and so I was trying to present to you guys a budget that balanced on both sides of the books, and adjusting that from 20 to 14. Did that this year, and like Chip said, and we're working on a plan to wait for the wastewater funding to see what we're going to get, and then how we're able to pay debt down some, because debt is the reason the enterprise fund can't fund itself. And so if we work on the debt, we can reapportion these at a late, to be what they should be. But at this moment, 14% gets us in the black for both sides of the funds.
And every 10% increase in that is?
Every 5% is 106,000, I think.
What do you think, 106,000? What do you think the number ought to be?
I mean, 40 to 45% is definitely pretty accurate on the folks that are paid out of the general fund that actually do work for the enterprise fund. In my 5 years, this is my 5th or 6th budget, we've only been there once. And so if we can get to a point where we can work on debt, which we've done this year with the PUT, trying to pay some extra balance, when the first one unlocks, the more we can pay those down, the more we're able to fund it. The funds can fund itself at that point.
So if every 5% is $106,000, fully funding this at 45% is $500,000.
Yeah.
There's that much staff work going into this system over the course of a year?
I would say, I know most of the streets guys do a lot of work with the water and wastewater. The girls at Town Hall, 80% of their job is water, sewer bills, calls. At the finance office, I have one that 100% probably of her position is water and wastewater with the billing and stuff like that. So I would say that really does accurately represent.
I almost feel like if you're adding in all of that time, I could see that either way. Service to the residents could be general fund, whether it's service to the resident about a water bill. It's not like we're going to parse out if someone calls in and says, I have a question about my water bill and also a code enforcement question and also this question. It's not like they're going to hang up the phone and be like, well, 4 minutes of that was enterprise related and the other 7 were not. I mean, I think at some point we're splitting hairs here.
Well, the reality is if I move, or if I ask her to move over to present it to you, and we move $500,000 into the enterprise fund, and the enterprise fund is $500,000 in the black, and the general fund is $500,000 in the red, does it matter? We still have to moving the money around to show one in the black and the other is going to be dramatically in the red doesn't balance our budget. This way, we're at a balance point. Our operating costs are covered, and there is a minute amount for capital. And then once we see how successful our efforts were to get money and how our grant is accepted by MDE, I think it allows the council to make thoughtful and deliberate approach and in their decisions to where we want to go forward, even at the mid-year mark if you want to revisit things.
Does any council member want to make a motion to adopt a higher, what do you call this, transfer enterprise?
Yeah, allocation transfer.
Does anybody want to make a motion to do that? Is anybody interested in this issue enough to do that? No, okay.
So what you have in front of you is just the couple changes from last week, the fixing the donations from 6,000 to 1,000, adjusting the planning where we took the zoning administrator out, so we put the money back in the contract services, and reducing the allocation to 14%. And so what this does is it puts the general fund in the positive 8,900 and the enterprise fund in the positive 7,200. This is inclusive of an extra payment to the 2012 bond of $376,731 as the bond unlocks July 1st. And the last 2 pages of your packet, Ashley, you had just asked to see what it would look like if we did put an officer in. So the last 2 pages just gives you the general fund with 1 officer would be in the whole $94,119.
So this budget, thank you very much for that. This budget in front of us now, with let's call it $9,000 and $7,200, is not inclusive of any of the reserve of the fund balance.
Correct.
So we're still carrying $6 million in revenue here.
And we're taking a somewhat big chunk out of some debt as soon as it unlocks.
Yeah.
Is there a, so this does not include capital.
This does include.
It does include it.
Yep, on the summary pages, about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see a line in each summary page for capital projects. So in general fund, it's $173,368, and in the enterprise fund, it's $154,000.
So this is not then inclusive of Belvedere or any of that?
No, sir.
Correct.
The weight, so there's a couple of things in play with that. One would be what we see as the results of the money coming in for water, wastewater. The next part is, because of the timing, we can then go back to, bless you. We can then go back to our senators and ask for federal earmarks again, because, as I said once before, Cambridge got $500,000 for a streets project. So we will be looking at funds balance. We loosely discussed permanent fund. We will then see more clarity on ARPA monies that are left over, possible pools from the federal level and possible pools from the state level to see where we can fund different things and how we can pay for them, what's in budget. And at that point, we are then engaged in, for sake of discussion, moving towards or entering into a construction phase on the wastewater treatment plant. We will then be looking at if council decides to look at the DRRAs and move projects forward, where other streams will come in or where they can exercise our desires to purchase things or do things on our behalf in concert with their developmental efforts. So over the next 12 months, there's going to be a lot of activity that we're going to be putting forward to you to look at and consider.
So with that being said, we didn't want to do a whole lot with fund balance until we knew what funds we could get. Because then we could possibly look at what are some of the streets we could do with what's left in the bank should the grant or the funding come down from state covers what we need for the plant.
And so this still shows, so we will be carrying how much forward on American Rescue Plan?
We'll have about 840,000 with what is encumbered remaining of the ARPA funds.
Which is not encumbered. The $800,000 is not encumbered.
It's not.
What
Yep.
we would like to use that for is as we move forward with the planning and design of the plant, and until, because the state's told us keep moving, until they start reimbursing us, use that to pay going forward. And then once that's reimbursed, that is at council's discretion of how to
And we just
apply
got to
that.
make sure we use it by 26, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Encumbered by 24, right?
Right, and use by 26. Which gives us some infrastructure options too.
So in the 2022 budget, we included funding for a farm purchase, which I assume is in this encumbrance package someplace.
It is. It was ARPA funds and it's 2.5 million.
Okay. And that will stay encumbered,
Yeah.
I can go through the encumbrance sheet if you'd like.
if you'd like to.
So what I'll do is I'll let you look through it. You don't want to go C11-9-860, blah, blah, blah. So I'll draw your attention to page 7.
Okay.
When we look at remaining funds, $207,713. Remaining encumbered to close, $117,873. The sidewalk revolving fund, the $89,000 we've talked about, brought it back in, brings us to $415,000. The first 4 items in projects to execute, the wharf roof, the contact chamber, the extra steel plate for the road repairs, and the concrete for the farm shed, were all in the 22 budget. We had, during the course of the year, had to move things around because other things were in more dire condition that required repair. And then after those were done, and we look at the encumbrances of things we budgeted for that we didn't fully need that amount, or things of that nature, we can then execute those 4 things. I'll draw you to the last 2, the wharf, the walls for the wharf offices. The 2 offices we're putting in there for the program manager and the admin assistant. That's a heavy estimate, I think, but the price of lumbers are obscene right now, so we think that'll come in under. And then the town hall paint and carpet, we just put a number there. We just got 2 more bidders, came and looked at town hall today, this morning. So we were receiving new bids, and one of them was a prior bidder who said his bid will be going down. Competition does that. The other 3 things are an additional police vehicle, a truck for DPW, and the police gator, which would be for the trails, as we've discussed a couple times in this council. The other vehicles, I think, are good execution of funds. These are things that would be coming up in our 5-year plan, but this will put us on a better glide path and put us kind of ahead of the game on our purchases and how we stagger our purchases. And then even after we execute all of these items, there is still $61,000 left in the encumbered balance. That could either be used for an emergency during the fiscal year, moved to funds balance, or used to pay towards an additional payment towards debt.
So these projects to execute, they're not included in the remaining encumbered to close. So these are new projects.
The first 4 were in 2022. The vehicle, the truck, and the gator were things that we were going to proffer, we just couldn't afford at the time. And then the walls for the wharf offices and town hall paint and carpet were newer. I believe we had something along the lines of $25,000 in the town hall budget line, but that was, we had the leak in the building, and then there was lighting, was what we talked about earlier, Carolyn?
That's for Lawyers Row. The doors.
The Lawyers Row, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Don't we have in the current proposed capital money for town hall?
25.
25,000, yeah.
So you would want the 60 plus that?
That's just kind of a rough order of magnitude based, yeah.
The answer is
Yeah,
no,
yes.
I don't care. I'm not asking negatively.
I don't think we'll need that much, but
The extension of the trail system to east of 213 is not in this budget, right?
I don't believe it is, no.
And that was how much, Shelby?
100.
That was 138,500.
So the gator in this case is for Millstream, essentially?
And beyond.
The DPW truck, yeah, we've spent a lot of money on new trucks in that fleet
Okay.
over the past few years. You know, last time I was there, it's a sea of pretty late model F-250s and 350s.
I think this is the F-450, and I don't know what additions
Bigger,
would.
Steve.
Yeah, bigger. It would, and I'm not sure with Kip being out, how that one would be outfitted, what equipment that would have.
And we just did 2 other police vehicles, right? We have them inclusive in this budget.
We do.
Do, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this wouldn't be a third, it would defray those costs from the budget. Is that the way you view that?
I viewed it as an additional, because I think we, as Chief had pointed out, we've got some fairly old vehicles in our fleet.
There was a vehicle purchase policy that was approved by council that pre-exists my time here, and quite honestly, we've not followed that for several years, which is like other projects in the town have just been kind of kicked down the road, and as Mr. Chip has said, that we're at the point now where, you know, we've got tires falling off of cars, and you know, we're at a point where we've got to get ourselves back to where we need to be as well. So that's why consideration is being asked to purchase that third vehicle.
Would these, so we have not talked about these at all through the process.
No, we have
So
not.
would these come back to us for consideration, or?
So I'm bringing up in this conversation now, because once we started, Councilperson Kaiser had asked us to look at the encumbrance, so we all got together at the wharf and kind of crushed the numbers, and as it started going up, we were a little bit surprised at just how much had been encumbered and not executed.
Yeah, and I asked the question after the whole sidewalk fund thing, because it just felt like, if we're never going to use this money, like, what do we actually need? Rather than just letting it sit. I'm really bad at math, so that's the caveat before I say this, because I did some math. If we skip the DPW truck, we could afford the trail extension.
Yeah, that's what I was just crunching too. If we skipped the DPW truck and the police vehicle. Or no, even without the police
Right,
vehicle.
without it,
Yeah.
even with the 61 left.
Yep.
Good enough at math for me.
Don't
I mean, I think
want
that
to confirm.
I think that the trail is a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think it brings people to town more effectively than, you know, anything else I think we do.
And does it ultimately connect us to White Marsh? Is that the?
Correct.
But that's future. I don't think that's in this plan, is it? Right.
So that's not in this plan, but in our last parks meeting, I think it's something within the parks budget already. They're going to put a foot trail in that goes from Northbrook to White Marsh, just once the dog parks goes in.
Right, so this gets us closer, though, in terms
Correct.
of connectivity for the whole town to get out to White Marsh.
Correct.
I like it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I'd want to see us do that.
That's the
Yeah,
best
me
idea I
too.
heard today.
We've had a rough day, Steve.
No. Got some grass. I like that. Good. Do we have consensus for that?
Yeah.
All right, so we're striking the DPW truck. 61 plus 85.
You said, what was that called? The expansion of what trail?
It's the Millstream Trail east of 213.
Karen, I can give you the, Mike's got a estimate of it.
Okay.
I can give you that
Okay.
number. So you can put
That
it
way
in.
I'll just keep this sheet, so when we do, because anything that's not done before 30 June will just be re-encumbered, as long as you are okay with that. And then we'll just keep track of these encumbrances, and once they're gone, encumbrances will be gone.
Well,
What if we get into a situation where the encumbrance for the farm, let's say we're mid-year, or we don't have enough encumbered to pay for the farm the way that previous councils have planned? What then would happen? Would we have to make a budget amendment? Would we have to?
Yeah, and how we would pay, so would we want to, depending on ARPA and the wastewater plant, like would we?
previous council had put in 1.5 million of ARPA and looked at $1 million loan.
Yeah.
When we had the money in ARPA, and we now have 2.5 million from ARPA. And if we get to that mid-year point and we have a better understanding from the state, there is that other 800K in ARPA that hasn't been allocated, which gives us rough order of magnitude 3.3 million available, should that be the need.
Okay, that sounds great. It's worth noting to council that, well, never mind. That might be appropriate for a closed session.
If you're hesitating, I'm going to agree.
I just want to make sure that for over the next year, we really keep our eyes on the ARPA money and make sure that we either get stuff done or figure out something else to do. And we don't throw our hands up in the air at the end of 24, like,
And lose any.
yeah.
Execution is foremost in every one of our meetings.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to adopt the budget as presented? How do you want to go through?
So you can just consensus that we're not going to make any more changes and this is good to go. And then
We have to have some hearings,
we'll
right?
have some hearings. Carolyn has to do some ads and stuff like that, but
And you have an ordinance. It has to be, it's passed through ordinance.
yeah, that'll be in May and June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just consent that this budget is ready to embark upon that process?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's no other changes,
Are there any
congratulations.
changes? Anything we want to talk about further? Anything we feel like we've delayed to talk about until now?
Are we good on the staff recommendation of not adding another officer? I'm fine, I just want
I
to make
am
sure.
as well.
I am as well.
Jeff's
Well, when
not.
I do a mid-year update, we can revisit, see where we're at with revenues coming in and, you know, we'll see, we can reapproach it at that point.
So that was with consideration to revisit?
In mid-year,
after?
yes.
Yeah.
Mid-year, yeah.
So when I do the mid-year update, I'll make sure we get together and prep for, yeah.
No, I definitely want us to look at it again mid-year. Don't feel comfortable kicking that can for a full year. I just want to thank staff for making this process as painless as it could possibly be. I really appreciate you all because you had good documents for us and helped me really understand the minutia of it, so thank you.
You're very welcome. No, I'm kidding.
But, yes, thank you.
Carolyn.
Yes, it was easier
She
this
did
year
do
than it
this.
was last year.
I'm getting giddy. I'm getting giddy.
Very much. I'll echo that.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
also preface it, or also prefacing it? I'll just add that, don't let that keep us from making it simpler next year.
Hey,
that's
we're always
already in the
striving for
works.
better.
Comic Sans, large font.
Just bring us a balanced budget to begin with.
Next year, the first meeting, what we're going to do is put forward an executive summary and kind of go over the highlights of the budget, some charts, some numbers for you to look at to see some changes that are going to be proffered, and then a little more concise on things rather than 4 lines for taxes 1 to kind of give you overall views. And then if you wish to drill down in an area that has a percentage that you're not comfortable with changes, you can say, I really want to look at this in the next work session, and then we can bring forward the more detailed documents for you. But to kind of give you that first overview to kind of see where am I going in, and then you can dive in.
Just so you know, this copy Crystal gave you is just so you have the most current salary and health insurance information.
Because of the dental insurance
The 5%.
rate increase, the 5%, I just plugged that number in there and updated the spreadsheets for your records.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We have consensus?
Yes?
Consensus. Move forward. Thank you very much. We have another citizen's comment.
Yes,
Sure.
there's,
Any citizens wishing to speak their case? Record reflect there are no citizens. I mean, other than all of us. We will adjourn.
Biggest meeting ever.